I'm going to go ahead and begin presenting so you can see that a little bit bigger. And now I will be reading chapter 2 from this book is Anti-Racist to you guys. At the end of this, I'm going to ask you to share your reflections and in in um, in the video format, but also write down your reflections so you can think about it for later. So, this is chapter 2. We've been looking at social justice all year long, but this is chapter 2 of this book is Anti-Racist. We're going to be examining what social identities are. So this is the title page for chapter 2. What are my social identities? Your many identities are part of the whole you. One part does not define who you are. Some of those parts you create for yourself. Other parts of your identity have been created by society. Society is another way of saying community. These identities have been created, named, framed, and defined by society for a very long time. We call them social identities. Your social identity is the you that relates to other people in society. For example, your neighborhood, city, or country. Much of our culture comes from our social identities and the groups we belong to. Our social identities are broken down into groups or categories that we get lumped into. This is not always our choice. Others may place you in categories even though you may not identify in the same way. This is a way of trying to figure you and others like you out. This is how our communities and countries have been set up for centuries. While the social identity categories can help us to see and understand ourselves and the people around us, they also determine how others will treat us. It is our job to learn and act. First ask, what are these social identities and why do they exist? Analyze them in a critical and conscious eye, and then work to undo why this is our current situation. In this book, we will focus mostly on our racial identities. But there are many categories within our identities that affect the way we interact with society. You may be familiar with the following: race, ethnicity, socioeconomic class, gender, age, language, religious beliefs, abilities, and family structure can also come under social identity categories. The parts of your identity that you notice and are most aware of on a daily basis may change depending on where you are, who you are with, and the experiences you continue to have in life. The identities you do not think much about, even the ones you barely notice, are always with you. Privilege. Some social identities hold power and privilege. Others do not. Even within us, there are parts of us that hold some power and other parts that are oppressed. This is why we work to understand our identities within society. We need to always examine our whole selves. The identities that fit neatly into the imaginary box are typically the ones with the most power and agency. One example of where I have some power is the language I speak. I live in a country where the most commonly spoken language is English. I can read and understand signs and directions. I can walk into a school or store, and the folks helping me will likely know what I'm talking about. I don't have to worry. Privilege is the benefits you receive due to how close you are to the dominant culture. For example, a white man who's able-bodied, considered handsome, and speaks English has more privilege than a black transgender woman. Those with privilege have power over others. Not everyone has privilege. Folks who do not benefit from their social identities have little to no privilege and power. Some of our identities hold privileges and disadvantages at the same time. Because I am a cis female, I don't have to worry about which restroom I will be able to use. I have agency. But because I am female, I do not have the same privileges as a male. I am more likely to be overlooked for a position of leadership and get paid for less for the same amount of work. While many Men can confidently walk alone at night. I cannot without feeling some fear that I may be harmed. Although I do not have the same privileges as a white male, I do have privileges trans and non-binary folks do not have because of my cisgender identity is closer to the dominant culture. Intersectionality. Looking at intersectionality helps us understand how our whole social identities can affect our lives. Kimberly Crenshaw, a Black female lawyer, author, scholar, and civil rights activist, used the term intersectionality in 1989 to help us better understand that being a woman and Black created greater disadvantage than just being a woman. A Black woman is marginalized because she's a woman and because she is Black. Her experiences overlap and cause great harm. When you look just at a person through a single lens, you can only narrowly understand them and their experiences. When you look at all the parts of a person and where they are oppressed, you will better understand how deeply discrimination advances onward in our society. Knowing who we are, where we hold agency, how our identities came to be, and how they determine our roles in society helps us to understand ourselves and how we can change a system where some folks have privilege and power and some folks are under-resourced and oppressed, to one where we are all liberated. We will learn more about privilege in chapters 15 and 17. Here is where I want you to reflect on your social identity. Pull out your reflection notebook. I would like for you to create a list of the social identity categories we mentioned in this chapter. If you need to rewind the video, you can do so. Can you think of more? Now I want you to write down your identity within those socially constructed categories. Which ones have the most impact to you on a daily basis? Lastly, I want you to reflect. What do you notice? Are there parts of you that hold power and privilege within your community? Are there parts of your identity that exist outside of the dominant culture? Once you've reflected for a couple of sentences, I would like for you to read your reflection in a Flipgrid video for your classmates to learn about your perspective on social identity. And that is your social social studies assignment for this Wednesday afternoon. All right, enjoy.